Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 50th instalment of Who Doesn't Have a Podcast? Round of applause.
50
We've
episodes,
not been
boys.
cancelled just yet.
God knows how I've wrangled you both for 50 recordings. It's great, actually. It's actually really, really random that we are celebrating our 50th episode when the two series of Doctor Who have finished. Because we started this podcast on the start list. So it wasn't planned that we did this, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
There we go.
And unfortunately, it'll be our last episode.
As you can see, we're in morning attire to celebrate the life of the 16th Doctor, 15th Doctor.
One of the Doctors. Yeah. I mean, it could be the 100,000th Doctor for all the lore purposes.
So many parallel folklores going on here.
Yeah.
But we are joined as ever by the fresh-faced, whimsical-haired nostalgia that is Jerome Dowling. Say hello, Jerome.
Hello, Jerome. It's a pleasure to be here.
And of course, who can do better at navigating all of the crazy batshit madness that is Doctor Who without our trustworthy sidekick and beautiful face man, Mr. Michael Priestley. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Dan.
I'm
not late.
I'm late.
So let's go into our discussion about the reality war, which is of course the finale of series 2 of this first, what would we call it? This first era, and potentially last era of this new generation of Doctor Who. So I thought, because obviously loads of things happen in this episode, and we have got a lot to discuss. So yeah. I've watched it twice, and I'll try go through it in what I think is an order. But if I miss anything, do shout, because I probably have forgotten. So I think the first thing which we should discuss, which I'm really big on, I think this was such a good idea, is how they resolve the cliffhanger. So to bring back the Time Hotel, to bring back Anita. So I don't know if you remember, but the Doctor's like falling into the underworld on that balcony, and then Anita opens a time door through the Time Hotel and saves him. I thought that was a genius way of resolving that cliffhanger, and a really lovely way of bringing back. So this is what I think this episode does really well. It does actually wrap up a lot of things about Ncuti's era of Doctor Who with a lot of characters that we've come to really like. So we've said on this podcast that we really liked Anita, and it'd be such a shame if we didn't see her again. So I thought it was really good that we did see her again, and I thought it was a really good way to resolve that cliffhanger. What about you guys?
I agree. For me, one of the strongest points of the episode was the Time Hotel. And I agree with you, Mike. I really enjoyed that resolution, because sometimes the resolutions in episodes can feel like a bit of a cop-out. Not looking at you, Dragonfire, with Sylvester McCoy, but there's like a couple of...
That's the one where he's hanging... Is that the one where he's hanging
that is the cliffhanger of all cliffhangers, because he's hanging off a cliff, which he chooses to hang from, because... Let's just go. He was on mad regeneration energy that day. Let's just give it an excuse like that. But in this, it just worked. It really, really worked. It kind of like diffused a very dramatic scenario in like a light comedic way that Doctor Who does best. And also, I agree with you. Like, Anita is just really a character who was, just fantastic in the episode at Christmas. Like, really got on board with. Mike, I know you had a couple of theories about her potentially being maybe a companion or something going on there, and she had the TARDISes, didn't she? So there was obviously a lot of stuff like the kind of the world bleeding into one another. And I just felt like it was a really strong opening to the episode. I do feel, and I think this is something we'll build on in this podcast episode, but I do feel like her involvement was amazing at the beginning, and then it felt like she was criminally underused for me for the rest of the episode. Like, I think there's one point where Ncuti's like, just keep that door open anyway, and then like turns away like for the camera. And I do, in terms of the context of it, I do understand, but I just felt like it became like a really nice narrative point that became convenience. And I get it. I get why it happened that way. But it would just have been nice to have had her do more than just stand in a door for like the second half of the episode. I don't know if you feel the same about that.
Interestingly, utilizing her like that, where she is just kind of stood there in the background, did lead to like the most comedic moments of the episode for me, is when people would address her and talk to her, and she'd go, "I just work in hospitality," which I thought, I think she does it twice or three times, and I was like, that is funny. Like, that is a really good way of, yeah. What about you, Dan? Did you enjoy the sort of how they resolved that cliffhanger?
Yeah, I think so. Let's be honest, there was no other way out of it. Unless, do you know what I mean? Unless like the Valiard appeared, then you were kind of screwed. No, I thought it was really lovely, and it was kind of refreshing because, again, we've known all along it was going to be ultimately a 2-season arc with all the characters and with some like subplots. So to kind of see them like play out right from the very get-go, it kind of set you up for the rest of the episode. So you kind of knew what it was you expected. Like, this wasn't just going to be the only reappearance of a character. We were going to see a few more along the way. But yeah, I thought it was really sound, like you said. I think just the sort of novelty, the fact that, you know, she doesn't see herself as this special person, you know, she's just doing a job, but she has such a major impact upon how that finale plays out, that it's kind of that sort of beauty of that sort of superhero beauty, I suppose, Doctor Who, where he'll take on like supposedly ordinary people and they have these extraordinary moments that help a lot of people. So it was really lovely to see that right from the get-go, and ultimately not kill Ncuti off 5 minutes into the ep.
So she also mentions, I can't find who she name drops, but I wanted to pick your brains about whether we think that they have potentially set her up for a future appearance. Is she mentions that when she left the Doctor, she found herself in the arms of someone called Fernando, I think. So I was wondering, which I thought was such a, because we don't know that character, we've never heard that character's name, we've never heard her talk about him. I wondered if they were setting up maybe something, you know, is he the master? Who knows? But I also picked up on when she said it, I picked up on a little bit of like a romantic feel between her and like she had feelings for him, which I don't know, because they spent all that time together, didn't they, in the Christmas episode?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a thing, but I'd love to see her again. I'd love to, you know, if the universe actually did take off.
I think the idea of the Time Hotel as well.
Yeah,
I think
it's good.
Forward,
It's
got
really
so
good.
much untapped potential, and I think you can make a spin-off purely off the basis of that. It'd be so interesting to, like, again, that would be a complete open door approach to the universe then, because there is really no creative limit as to where you could take it. I mean, she looked back and saw
she's
all
great
these
as well.
pivotal moments of the Doctor's life. And I love that
Oh, that
as
was
well.
so good.
I love that she was
I
there
saw
during like the dance and during like, what were the other moments as well? Remind me.
there was one with John Pertwee, wasn't there? Jerome, you're the expert.
Yes. Yeah. Matt Smith. Matt Smith.
Yeah, they had Matt Smith.
Like the live chess, which I think is the wedding of River Song, and then you've got the Day of the Daleks. I think the John Pertwee episode where there's quite a famous scene where he's like on the table, and I think that's like its own cliffhanger in the serial. But yeah, it was some really interesting, just moments to choose, I guess, out of all of them. Nice to kind of put classic here in there as well.
Yeah. They had the clip from Rogue as well when Rogue and the Doctor are dancing. I think she visits the Doctor there. So yeah, it was lovely, and I'd love to see more of her. I think she's a really good character. I think it said a lot about that character that, like, I feel like as soon as she was introduced in the Christmas special, I was like, this is one of the best peripheral characters we've had in Doctor Who for ages. So it'd be a waste not to use her. And also the actor that plays her, like, I haven't seen her in much else, so she's obviously should be available to do something like this for like a long time. So I think they should. Yeah, it's good. So stop me if I'm missing anything, but off the top of my head, what happens then is Anita saves the Doctor from the Time Hotel, and then shows the Doctor that what's the date? May 26th or May 25th?
Third.
Is it May 23rd?
May 24th that he can't get to, isn't it?
Yes. So it keeps resetting.
Yeah, the fact that he never, by the time it hits 11:59, something, it resets back to the next day.
It resets. And Anita gives like a canonical in-universe sort of explanation that it just resets each time, right? So they can't get there.
Yeah.
And from there, we go straight to Belinda and John Smith's house, don't we? So I believe that's when we get Belinda and John Smith and the Doctor, and John Smith comes down the stairs because he's been John Smith in the Wish World reality up to this point, hasn't he? Takes off his costume and then he's the Doctor again. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yes. Because then, is that when Mrs. Flood comes to arrest them?
I think that was in Wish World.
That was Wish World. I watched them back to back. That's why I'm a bit confused.
How
Because
actually? No, I was going to say out of interest, like, because I think me and Mike watched them separately.
Yeah.
And I was wondering whether if watching both of them back to back would have been I don't want to say a better experience, but just a more valuable experience. I don't know. How did you find it, Dan, watching them back to back?
I'd say so, because you didn't really fall out of the moment while the tension that was there, and by some miracle I managed to time it quite perfectly. So just as we'd finished, or just as I'd finished Wish World, flicked over to BBC One, and it was just starting the reality war. So I timed
That's a good point. And out of the three of us, the only person to have actually watched this episode live.
Who would have thought that 49 episodes ago, eh? Madness. But no, yeah, I completely agree. I think, yeah, watching them in sequence, I think it definitely made more sense. And I feel like it was coherence, for coherence sake, they did kind of meld together pretty well. But yeah, it was.
So we'll keep going through it.
Yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah,
we'll go through it. We'll go through it in sort of how we remember, because so much stuff happens.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think after that is when Anita takes them all to Unit, and then we have that, I think, really cool sequence of the kind of Wish World kind of shattering when they see the Doctor like come through, and everyone starts getting their memories back and the reality starts breaking. I think so. We've got all the heavy hitters there. You've got Kate and the hunky guy, I can't remember his name, but everyone starts to remember, I think. And then I think Ruby arrives, and so then that happens. What happens next?
Well, you get the Rani turns up. She teleports into Unit Tower, and it was interesting. Like that scene, it was nice to see the involvement between those two characters, particularly with the Doctor as the Doctor, and not some babbling idiot as John Smith. Which
was my gripe with last episode.
Which you've got
wanted him to remember who he was earlier,
so that you can have those two kind of go up against each other properly. So that was nice. I know there's been some criticism of that scene, saying it was too exposition heavy, and that sort of leading back to what we were saying about Anita, where it's like she was just in a doorway. It just felt like everyone else at that point was like, you stand exactly where you are, and the camera's just going to be on these two characters, and that's it. Which I kind of get, because it's nice to offer them that moment. But it did feel a little bit like, I don't know, chewing dialogue a little bit.
It was exposition heavy. We also got the bit which I was hoping we would get, because they've been setting up Miss Flood for so long. But when Mrs. Flood comes in, and it is the two of them, you get both Belinda and Ruby say, "That's my neighbour." Yeah. So we had some sort of payoff to all of that setup, I guess.
Yeah.
But then the Rani dismisses a Rani, so Mrs. Flood. Doesn't like mid sentence, I think, or something. And
she gets rid of her.
Yeah.
Much like how Russell T Davies just got rid of Omega.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
It was interesting, the kind of dynamic and the offer the Rani made. Again, I really enjoyed Archie Punjabi's performance. Very good. Just a really kind of great mix of sort of bombastic and kind of menacing. Because she has that kind of crazy eye going on, but she does it in a way that's quite charming. And I very much enjoyed her performance. It felt like slightly like quite dramatic and quite theatrical, but sort of just worked. I think it really worked. And maybe because there was like enough of a difference between her and Anita Dobson's Rani as well. Like, I don't know, it's just revealing all. I suppose that's one of the pluses, in fairness, about Bi-Generation, is that when you've got two characters literally on screen next to each other, and we'll come to another point on that later in the episode, but it's like when you've got those two iterations next to each other, it does kind of create this electricity in the scene, if it works. And I did I think a plus for me in this and Wish World is actually the relationship between the two Ranis. I thought was quite strong, as in like the differences and the similarities between them. I actually enjoyed that throughout, which really worked for me.
So interesting that you said bi-generation, because we also in that scene did get a kind of throwaway explanation to bi-generation. So don't know if you remember, but they discuss how so you won't know this, Dan, but when in the Chris Chibnall era, when they destroy Gallifrey again, so the explanation now is because Gallifrey was destroyed by the Master deploying like a genetic bomb. Now Time Lords are infertile, so now, not always, but only now, they can't have children. So the Doctor's explanation or his hypothesis for what bi-generation is that it's like a life force trying to survive because it can't pass on its genes.
It's like it's like an alternative evolution, isn't it? It's like which works, to be fair. But again, it's an interesting one because it's like, and again, this will just be down to lore and stuff, but it's like the chosen moments for it. For example, like why is it happening now and at these points and for different things? So, which will probably never be explained. And obviously a lot of it's to do with celebrating a 60th anniversary or vice versa or whatever. But yeah, it just interesting. But yeah, they gave it a line. There's a reason. That's something you can hold on to, isn't it?
Yep. So from there, from there, we also get a really important. I'm flicking through the episode as we go, actually. So then we get a really important scene that the Doctor establishes why Poppy's real. So this way we have to do this episode like this because there's so much going on. So Poppy is obviously the center of this plot. So why is Poppy real? And the way that I understand it is Poppy is real because she was kind of wished into existence. And the reason that she looks like the space baby version of Poppy is because that's like a memory of the Doctor's or something. That's how I understand it. So, but Poppy is very much real, and she is Belinda and the Doctor's daughter, manifested through wishes. Quite Disney.
Very Disney.
Yeah, I guess it is. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess that's true. It was interesting because it kind of throws back to a lot of themes that have appeared in Ncuti's tenure, especially with like the church on Ruby Road, the kind of the element of children there, the element of the Doctor's children, references to Susan, and then we saw Susan, and then I feel like there was some real heartful moments in this episode. And I feel like they wanted to lean into that more, but there was also the aspect of we've got to have a big kind of stardom finale where action happens. And I feel like it would have been, I was going to save this for later, but I think it's coming up now. Again, my big thing with maybe this whole tenure, the past 2 seasons, is it's too much in too little time. It's too much. There's too much going on. Like, and it's fine. Like, it's not necessarily bad things, because they're all really interesting concepts and ideas, but it's like 45 minutes. There's just not enough time. And it just feels like things are either being kicked to the side as quick resolves, or it's like because I don't know what you boys feel about this. I feel like Russell wanted to spend more time on the idea of like the Doctor and children. And kind of, there was a line at the end, and I know I'm skipping, I won't go too far, but like Ruby says, oh, I can't remember who says it. It's like, we're all your children. And it's like, yeah, they really want to explore that. But it's like, they really, Kate, and it's like, they really want to explore that. And it's like, that's fine. Like, go and do that. But it just feels like it's getting bogged down with other stuff all the time. And it's trying to appease everyone. And I don't, what do you guys think about that? Because I feel like all the concepts are really interesting. And actually, again, I don't want to go too far because I know we're doing it in a certain order, but like towards the end of the episode, you can tell that this is a meaningful thing and it's an important thing. But it just feels like it's getting bogged down or like thrown places because of other things. And what do you think?
You're not alone thinking that. All I've seen on TikTok, I've seen so many posts of people saying exactly the same thing, and they've compared it right back to even say Martha's episode when she first joined back in series 3. the way Russell T Davies has written it this time round, or compared to the past, is the episode run times are fairly similar. Give or take, you're missing a couple of episodes in the series run, but the episode's about 44, 45 minutes. That's never changed. In the earlier seasons of Doctor Who, he focuses more on the characters. So when you finish episode 1, you've got a bit of a fairly strong understanding of who Martha Jones is, what her kind of past is, what her family's like, kind of the sort of, you can gauge what she is. And then the kind of story kind of comes second to that. I feel like upon reflection, in this incarnation Doctor Who, it has been more based on the story. And I think that's been seen more so in the finale because, as you've hit the nail on the head, Jerome, a lot of the characters have kind of fallen by the wayside without any real explanation or particularly moments where, say, like characters that we've seen for maybe 15, 20 minutes an episode, they get killed off. And we're meant to empathise, we're meant to get quite upset by them. But there's not enough focus or maybe so much attention on them that you feel for them.
Just quickly to come in on that, I don't necessarily know. Like, I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree with it. I don't know if it's the characters necessarily. I think it's just there's like, and again, I don't know. This is just an assumption. I've no idea, but it feels like because of like, are Disney going to greenlight the third series or not? Are they or are they not? It kind of feels like there's so many ideas that they have to try and get out now to try and almost get that confirmation that we're going to keep going with stuff. And I feel like sometimes that just kind of makes ideas crumple or just kind of like go, some of them we're going to follow, but others it's like, it was really good and then we're just going to chuck it away. And it's like, I think personally, and again, I'll wait a little bit because I know we're going to talk about this as well, but like, I feel like the other series, like The Land Between the War and the Sea, are going to really help. And the reason I think that is because it's going to...
I just say, it's war between the land and the sea. And
what did I say?
For the past 3 episodes, you have consistently called it the land between the war and the sea.
The land,
for 3 episodes, and I've never corrected you because I thought it was just going to be like a slip of the tongue. But
the land between the war and the sea. What would that even mean? Anyway, the war between the land and the sea. It was. I feel like that will allow us to like explore different themes and different concepts and ideas that can be fleshed out. I just feel at the moment having the one flagship show trying to encompass so many ideas is in some part making it suffer. Whereas I think when it will have other shows to take on certain themes and certain characters maybe and certain ideas or kind of link them in to the main flagship show, I think it will take the pressure off and it will allow them to focus a bit more. Because I just feel at the moment, it's like, there's a lot I enjoyed in this finale. Like genuinely, there's a lot of things that I thought were brilliant and we'll come on to them, I'm sure. I just feel like it was struggling. It was struggling to really keep a lid on everything and try and do the best it could with all of the ideas.
So let me counteract that with this. Do you reckon that is the downside of having a 2-season story arc compared to a self-contained solo season?
I don't know. I don't know about that because like all of these things are following the formula of like Marvel, right? I think since Marvel happened, like TV shows, all of these things have gone down this route of like threading. So like threading different characters and different ideas and like, you know, building them over a series of like a phase, because that's what Marvel call it, don't they? It's like phase 1 to 5 and stuff. It's like they're all trying to do that now. And it's like the Whoniverse. They're clearly trying to build that and make it a pot. But I also think like it struggles because if you know your actor playing your lead character is going to go after a certain amount of time, do you bend it to that much? Do you have ideas for the thing going forward? And I'm sure they probably had an idea of when he was going. I'm sure they probably did. I mean, they must have done, or at least Russell did. So I think that you do kind of build things around that. But yeah, it just, I don't know. There's just certain things that, because I get the impression, I want to wait on this because I know we're going to come on to Omega, and I know that's going to, or Omega, I know we're going to come on to that. But it's like, it just felt like we could have, was there a point of even doing it? Or should you have just left it? If there were more interesting ideas to go with, should you have just focused on them? And because it just felt a little bit gimmicky, but I'll wait because I know.
Let's get on to that because it is close. It is pretty much next up. The only thing I wanted to introduce before that is probably one of the most effective parts of the episode starts happening now, where Susan Triad, off of last year, starts building a sort of out of reality that, well, I can't remember what they call it, but to put Belinda and Poppy in. So hopefully that if the Doctor and his team win against the Rani and they beat the reality war, Poppy will still exist because she's kind of like outside of space and time. Really reminded me of, I don't know if it is the same technology, but it really reminded me of Series 2, 2006, with the Dalek, the Daleks that were in the
prison.
Daleks?
The
Yeah,
prison
the
ship.
prison Daleks.
The Void.
Say again,
yeah.
Dan?
Is it the Void?
Yeah, the Void. So they had like a Void ship, didn't they?
Yeah, I got that.
So I don't know if that was a link to that, but anyway, that was probably one of the most provocative things about this episode is when the Doctor puts Poppy and Belinda in there, and Belinda says Poppy's not going in there alone. She's my daughter. I'm going to go in with, and then the Doctor explains that if they don't win, Poppy and Belinda are going to be in there forever, and they'll never age. They'll never need to eat. They'll just exist as they are now in that, which I thought was an absolutely horrifying thought. And the fact that Belinda went in there with Poppy, I thought was mad. So especially if you think about it, if Poppy, if it hadn't worked and Poppy didn't survive it, Poppy didn't exist, Belinda would have been trapped in there for the rest of eternity, and she would have forgotten about Poppy. So she would have just been like left there for it, which is horrible. Anyway, from there we then get the big old Omega reveal. And I knew it was going to be a shit show as soon as I saw that massive hand. It's very much a Sutek, 2.0.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Mike, how pissed off were you that it wasn't Ryan Gosling?
A lot of money on that.
I'm in my shed.
A lot of people
expect in the build-up.
So can I just say?
Oh, go on.
So I just need to preface this by saying I did post a short to our channel the other day in which we were worried about Omega because there was already a lot of things going on, and last week they just decided to name drop Omega out of everywhere, and so we knew that there was going to be another big reveal, and kind of the way they did it, I'm kind of in support of, because there was no way that they were going to pay it off. So the fact that he's introduced and then within 5 minutes he's gone, I'm like, maybe that was the most satisfying way of doing that if you're going to do it and not do it at all. So that's my 2 cents.
Dan,
it was all right.
I mean, people like me and you, Dan, we don't even really know who Omega is anyway. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, I sort of looked up I did a bit of a Google search for Omega, and you kind of imagine that to drop a name like that, because we've had quite a history now since it's come back again of bringing back these very sort of more vintage baddies, if you like, in the show. And up until that point, I'd said I've done a fairly decent job of reintroducing them. And I thought, okay, and if Omega, how is Omega described again? Is it the worst of what?
The original Time Lord. So like
the original Time Lord.
The first Time Lord. Yeah.
So with that, you're kind of expecting again, sort of presence of sort of older man or lady or anyone else, but
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling, absolutely. So to then kind of see a sort of skeleton dog come out of the door, it was a bit of I'll be honest, it was a bit of a what the fuck is going on? I was a bit taken aback. I didn't really know what to make of it.
The CGI was good though. I was
don't get me wrong, the CGI was top notch, and I wouldn't expect anything less when you've got a budget that big. It was going to be good. I just think, I don't know whether it was another one that was kind of thrown up in conversation. And again, I know this is another point we'll get onto later, because again, the way the episode was going to end and conclude, it's like the series was, originally was going to be very different to what we got. So I wonder how much the rewrite maybe affected the appearance of Omega in that episode, because in an hour and 10-minute episode, like you said, there is a hell of a lot to cram in, and it felt like a bit of a shame to reintroduce the original Time Lord for like a quick 5-minute cameo, and then you were back to some, do you know what I mean? Like it was kind of brushed under the carpet again.
So before Jerome absolutely goes off on one, I do need to address something that I can feel
my eyes. Yeah, I can feel
that we've been getting rinsed at in the comments. Whenever we talk about Omega, all of our comments are like, well, we need to learn how to pronounce his name first. So, Jerome, how do we pronounce it? I'm saying Omega. Dan's saying Omega. I think it might be Dan's way of saying it. How do you actually say it?
Well, there's like,
Why would anyone care?
why would anyone care?
Don't invite the internet to do that. It's an
Um,
open door for abuse.
I'll be honest with you, lads. I don't know the correct way to say it. The three that have always come out are
You're our only hope, Jerome.
Omega is one, Omega, which I don't think is right, but I have heard people say that before, and Omega. I would have said Omega, which the comments are probably going to disagree with, but I you know what, the one thing I can say to this that might be a saving grace for us genuinely is his first appearance, or their first appearance, is with the three doctors, and they use one pronunciation, and then they appear again with Peter Davison, and they use a different pronunciation. So I don't even think the show knows.
So no one gives
what's
a shit.
going on.
Yeah.
So really, it doesn't matter. But
TikTok, if you're watching, get off our backs.
I'll tell you what the first thing I'll say is, I actually wasn't that impressed with the CGI. I don't actually think it had any sort of. I actually think are they called the bone, the big dinosaur things, the bone creatures?
Just a quick side question.
I thought they were more impressive than Omega.
A very quick side question. I'm so sorry to interrupt. What was the point of those bone creatures?
I think I think they exist in the underworld, and when the reality started like clashing, they started to like the Rani does something to make Unit Tower a target for the bone monsters, and then they start attacking Unit, and then Unit. So it's like a big spectacle. Like I'm not sure it was like really pivotal.
They're a product as well, aren't they, of the wish world, as in like when this reality is distorted, they are creatures that are like produced, as in like they feed off the energy of the make believe, or the the kind of the alternate reality. I think. Okay. But I actually thought like something I will mention quickly is I actually thought the unit battle, which we haven't mentioned, was very good, as in like the way they did that. And I know a couple of people who saw it in the cinema and said that was a real experience. Like to see those scenes on the big screen was incredible. My thing is, I think it would have been better if they had just not introduced Omega or Omega. You've got me like confused over which one I should use now. Omega, and just stuck with the Rani, because I actually think the Rani's solo motivations would have been enough. Yeah. To try and rebuild Gallifrey, and to have basically like maybe cracked open the universe, to have kind of created a power that was enough to bring back Gallifrey, even through the Vindicator with the power of billion suns. And maybe there was a way that Omega could have been released like unintentionally through that. But I just felt like, for me, now having watched both episodes, I feel like it really undermined the Rani and the build-up of the Rani for 2 seasons to bring in this character right at the last minute that we haven't met, we haven't been introduced to, has really meant nothing in terms of all right, you kind of get that passing to like the god of time, but it just feels very tenuous. And I really felt like they'd really introduced the Rani well in the grand scheme. I think the whole Mrs. Flood thing really worked. It got everyone like, who is this? Who on earth is this? And then Archie Punjabi came in, did a really good job. And for me, more than just the scenes with Omega or just being able to like get rid of them so easily, I'm really annoyed that. Does that mean like Archie's 10 years over? Because I'm really annoyed by it. I don't get me wrong. I think I said to you last week, didn't I, Mike? Like one of them's going to go. Like I think I said that on the pod. I was like, one of them is bound to go. Didn't expect it to be. I thought it would be Anita Dobson, because I thought they would just give it to But I'm just really annoyed because, and just the way like Anita Dobson left as well, and just be like the 2 Ranis. Guess that's the end of the 2 Ranis. It's good night from me, which was kind of funny. But I just felt like this is a character that's been built up so strongly for 2 seasons, and then just to, in my opinion anyway, but just that the feeling I had at the time was just to throw it away like that. Come on, do you know what I mean? Like, come on, like you can do better than that. You just can. And I just wish they'd never introduced Omega in that context. I'd rather they just not done it and just kept it purely at the Rani's.
I tell you what, I didn't expect motivation. So I didn't expect Omega to just pick her up, Anita. I actually quite liked it. I was like, I just didn't see that coming at all. It was a proper surprise.
Do you feel like?
I
Sorry,
wonder,
yeah.
sorry, mate. Yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder with Omega, Big O. Let's just agree, Big O. I wonder if with Big O, it was potentially going to be. It was potentially, and I'm pulling it out of thin hair here, but it's the only thing that kind of makes sense, considering, like you said, Drew, of how sort of unnecessary and how it actually kind of ruined the build-up to that kind of endpoint was. Do we reckon that that character would have had a bigger, or would have been one of the main plot points of season 3? But because it was a bit on edge, they thought, well, we've got the idea, it'd be a shame to let it go away. Let's kind of shoehorn it in. And like you said, it's kind of negated the 2 seasons worth of build-up for the Rani, and just kind of been a bit of a
I don't know. I get the impression that, and this is only an impression, but I get the impression that Russell might not have wanted to have used that character, and that maybe there's been a request somewhere down the line by like Disney or whoever to go, we need the big lore characters, a bit like they've done with Marvel, and just gone, we need to have these people returning, or this character make an appearance, or this happen, or RDJ is going to come back as a new villain. Like, there's so much going on that I just feel like, and I'm not, maybe Russell did want to do that. He did want to incorporate that story. That's fine. But I just get the impression the way the character was used, and I do hear you about the retcon sense of, you know, like reshoots and stuff, and maybe it was that. But I just get the impression that this is a character that there was no real desire for on the side of the writing team, and I feel like it's been shoehorned in because it was a request, and that's how I feel. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but from watching the episode and watching the scene, that's how I felt. I just felt like I think it's
quite weird that it's another massive CGI lore heavy villain at the end of the series. So like Sutek and Omega are proper CGI like things. They're things really. They're not anything else. So that does feel like it could have, and it's all speculation, but it does feel like some sort of Disney exec might have been like, we need to justify this money. So, and it does, it looks amazing. And all the stuff with units shooting down the bone monsters looks amazing. It looks really, really, really high budget. But I can see what you mean, and I can see why people are really annoyed about it. I agree with you, Dan. Maybe it was supposed to be a setup for like something that was supposed to happen in a potential 3rd series, but
yeah. And the funny thing is as well, I mean, and I'm sure we've mentioned it quite a few episodes ago, but I'm sure one of the first things we said once we knew it was Disney taking over, and a lot of that was, I wonder if they're going to go for like a sort of a Marvel style thing and kind of introduce a lot of big heavy hitting moments and really kind of like build up to like a massive kind of payoff. And in a weird roundabout kind of way, that is what's happened. And
I just don't know how well suited Doctor Who is for that, though.
But that's the thing. It's not. It's a very much. I mean, it always has been kind of more of the self-contained thing where you kind of had. It's not been so much as. I mean, the only one that immediately springs to mind is like Saxon. Is like the vote Saxon thing. It was like very tiny, subtle things that you would not have picked up on until the end, and you watched it back and you went, "Oh, okay, that's quite clever." This run, it's very much with Mrs. Flood being in your face right from the get-go. It's always had to spell it out to you that I'm here, I'm going to continue being here, but what am I here for? And it's kind of like dumbed it down a bit. And I feel like it's maybe, I don't know, I feel like it's taken a bit of the shine, bit of the edge off. Because normally when you have that big moment, it's either a plot twist or something else where you're not expecting it. I feel like because you've been expecting it for quite some time, maybe the actual payoff we've expected more of, and because it's maybe not delivered on that, that's why it feels like more of a letdown, because it's not really amounted to as much, or it's not really been as much of a surprise as we've seen in the past. Jerome, I'm guessing you don't really agree with that.
Well, no, I do think there's been this like Marvelification, you're welcome, Oxford Dictionary, of kind of but like of Doctor Who, where I like, the thing is, there was actually a lot I really enjoyed in this finale, and it was actually like ultimately I had a really good time experiencing it, and I did, like, regardless of all its flaws, I had fun watching it, and I think that's the biggest thing. But I just feel like they've wasted that character and that scene, like, because they could have, well,
Omega could come back, right? But it just feels like the way they literally shut the door on that moment almost felt like it was like, great, that's done.
Yeah.
On to the next one. And that's fine, but I just would rather maybe, like you're saying, Dan, just keep it a bit more self-contained. Like really have a like, and Russell can do this. We know he can do this, like from series
He's done
1
it
to
for 4
4.
seasons,
Like where
yeah.
it, you know, all of the kind of that building of crafting that story and things. Like he can definitely do it. And has done it. And has done it in parts in this season as well. I just feel like it is becoming a bit Marvel. And kind of,
Well-
and I think this is one of my big things. Just like the last thing I'll say as well, and then Mike, please come in. But it's like my big thing, and this has probably been since sort of Chris Chibnall, is my worry with the lead character and of the Doctor is that they're becoming too much of like the superhero of like everything, like they're basically Superman or like, you know, the top dog echelon. And I feel like something that I always really
Dr.
enjoyed about the
Mysterio.
show. Yeah, Dr. Mysterio. That's the level. And it's like I enjoy it when the character is I can't remember who says the line, but it's like, you know, passing through, helping out, and but there's always that challenge, there's that obstacle, and they are they're an incredible character, so they kind of find a way, but it's like discovery in the moment of like, you know, the genius to try and help out in a situation or get out of a difficulty. Whereas now it's like the whole scene with the Vindicator, like the 15th Doctor was basically like, I wonder how I'm going to get out of this. Where it's like, I already pre-planned it because I've got this super weapon behind me that I'm just going to do, and you all know that as well. And I just feel like it's a bit kind of, you know how like it happens in the Marvel movies where it's like a character comes in or they've got all their like little jokes or little, you know, kind of meme moments where it's like, this is going to happen. And yeah, it's fine. It's just, it's not for me. It's not in my personal taste, but that's just how I feel.
I think a good comparison, because they're both mega Russell T Davies finales, is between this and The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, the series 4 two-parter, because that again was a massive cosmic reality bomb, like mega event. And they, with that, they brought Russell T Davies, like masterfully brought together 4 series of setup, you know, with characters from Torchwood. We had Sarah Jane in there. We had, and then nobody felt underserved, and the plot still felt huge, and it was really satisfying. I really enjoyed this, but I don't know how satisfying it felt, to be honest. But okay, let's park Omega, and let's move on to. So that happens. So and Omega takes the Rani with him, which is quite disappointing. But then once that's finished, we then find out that we have missed something quite important, actually. Have we? Yeah, we have missed something quite important. So actually, going through the episode, all of these plot lines are wrapped up within 40 minutes. Okay. And the episode is 1 hour, 5 minutes. So the rest of it is like an epilogue, which is weird. It's quite weird. We missed the resolution of Conrad. So Ruby teleports into where Conrad is and essentially manages to get her hands on. Let's remind you both, boys. There's a baby that's a god in this. It's the god of wishes. That's another massive thing. So Ruby makes a wish with the baby that Conrad be happy, which I thought was quite nice, which I thought was like a neat way of resolving his story. But again, it's so much. There is so much. You've got this god baby, you've got Conrad to resolve, you've got Omega, you've got the 2 Ranis.
One thing I would say as well is genuinely an up for this episode and the season as well. I have really enjoyed Millie Gibson's turn as Ruby Sunday in this series, more so than actually when she was the lead companion. I just feel like we've seen some really nice developments of her character in terms of like what the role she has played in kind of supporting the Doctor and also her own independent self.
We also get a payoff. We get a payoff for 73 yards as well, don't we?
Yeah,
because it's explained that Ruby can remember an alternative history because she's already lived through 2025.
And that, for me, that was one of the best bits of storytelling in the episode, like that follow through. And I just thought it was something that was really, really like believable and was a real big payoff for her character. So there were like moments in this episode where you go, yeah, that really stuck with me. And I just thought that actually she was one of the best parts of the episode for me. I agree with you. I think the resolution to Conrad worked. Like, I wish you to be happy. Keep it. That's like really, really like boil it down to something simple. And it's like, where does all this come from? She was like, those moments were real, or this or whatever. And I thought that was yeah, a really good thing. But again, like, yeah, the God of Wishes, the baby, and it, you know, it did get explained in Wish World. Like, it won't completely like ignore that and things, but again, it's just another, here's an idea, here's something, it's another ad and sidetrack, and it's like, okay, cool, and it's fine. And I get it, you've got to keep it moving, you've got to keep the pace up, because admittedly this could all be way too slow and way kind of like, yeah, okay, I get it, it's a baby god that does wishes, like, move on. But yeah, it's, again, like you say, Mike, it's another thing.
You notice as well, the baby giggled. It did the giggle. Yeah.
So I think that's it's the explanation that it's part of the pantheon of gods.
Oh, right, okay. I got really confused by that bit. I thought it was I don't know what I thought.
Well, it was the toy. You think it was the toy maker, like as a kid, I guess. I think what's weird, what it's indicative of is when I brought up the Conrad thing and the God Baby, you both looked like you just remembered it, and that is the problem with this episode, is there is so much.
There's so much Sentai-ing. way too much. And like you said, in the past as well, like if you keep it simple, you get a better, like, more substantial ending, because you focus on that one thing, and it's like you can go into more detail on it. And like you said as well, like, you're not even getting the full hour and 5 minutes worth. You're getting like 40 minutes, and then you've got the final bit that's like a bit out of place. But it's just like, again, there could have been so many little plot points that could have just been removed, and we could have focused on other bits, and it would have been more wholesome, I'd say.
I feel like this is an episode that wants you to watch it more than once, and perhaps you will. But I feel, yeah, and maybe that's how you get the satisfaction element. Do you know what I mean? Of like, when you're taking in all these plot points and story points. But will I? I don't know. I'm like, as in, like, with the time.
Probably not. Most casual fans aren't watching anything twice. Like, I think all three of us, because we're such huge fans of Doctor Who when it was brought back in 2005. I mean, I've watched those episodes up to the end of Tennant's era like hundreds of times, I think. But you really have to. Doctor Who has to be a huge part of your life to do that. I'm not sure how many people are going to revisit all of this. I don't know, fair, maybe we're too old.
To be fair, I was reading the comments for like this episode on like different things that they put out soon after, which is another point I want to come to in a bit. But like they put all these things out, and actually, like, there's a whole load of fans, like new fans, that love it. And you know what? That's great, because even if I haven't been able to get to the same levels they have, I know that I have in the past, like you were saying with like Tennant and Matt Smith and stuff. And it's like there were some people who were like devastated about the regeneration and other things. And I feel like that has left its mark. And we've talked about this before, Mike, and maybe we have as well, Dan, but it's like, maybe it's stuff we've seen before and it doesn't have the same effect. Do you know what I mean? Maybe. Like there are moments, like I remember Utopia was huge for me. Like that whole, you know, when it was like the Master was revealed and the watch. And like those bits in the Stolen Earth as well, like Tennant's fake regeneration, you know, and the hand, like, no, these things were like, I just remember them so vividly as being like, oh my God, how is this going to be resolved and things. And there were a couple of Matt Smith moments as well. And maybe it's just we've been there and done it, so it doesn't carry like the same weight. I don't know.
I feel like I think it's just the fact that we had maybe better. And it probably helped that maybe the seasons were like, what, 12, 13 episodes? So maybe that's been another issue, the fact that we've only had like 8 episode seasons. They've had to cram it all into an even tighter like duration. And it's always difficult, because at least with the old Doctors, that's an extra 5 episodes worth of breathing room. And sometimes if you have the extra time, you can flush out those characters a bit more, and you get a bit more of an empathy for them. Or indeed, you know, when something bad happens, like, you feel it more because you've been with them for longer. I feel like this, it's just kind of, you never really, apart from 1 or 2 maybe minute moments, you've never really had the time to maybe grow and appreciate and sort of love these characters, because it's been so
including with the Doctor. I think it's just too short. Like, it's especially like you say, 8-episode series, so 16 episodes basically we've had of Ncuti's Doctor, which I think was obviously not the plan. So let's carry on, because we do have some big things to talk about still. So after this,
so sorry, Mike, you just reminded, because I read it up. I think it might have been on one of the Doctor Who behind the scenes things. Apparently, and you might already know this anyway, but apparently for the 60th, he was meant to be doing the 60ths.
oh,
Didn't know this until recently. Apparently, the original plan for the 60th specials were that Ncuti Gatwa was going to be the Doctor for those. However, there was something to do with like a filming conflict, and as a result, they had a bit of a nightmare where they needed to fill that gap. So that's why David Tennant was brought back in to kind of bridge the gap, because Ncuti was unavailable. So we actually would have had another 3 episodes worth of content with Ncuti.
I don't know how well that would work though, because obviously they're supposed to be 60th anniversary specials, aren't they? So I don't know.
I don't know how it would have planned out, but yeah.
The Doctor leaves. So the Doctor leaves the God Baby with Ruby's parents, which I think is quite neat. It's quite a neat little wrap up of all that story. But now they're in possession of the most powerful entity in the world, and then some other stuff happens to do with. Oh yeah, so Ruby, like, people start forget, the Doctor and Belinda start forgetting Ruby, don't they? And not Ruby.
Poppy.
Start forgetting Poppy.
God,
and then that was
probably the most emotional bit for me.
It was good, and Ruby is the one that has to. Ruby's the one that's saying, why doesn't anyone else remember Poppy? So I think that ties into the 73 yards thing, and that's when the Doctor realizes that he is going to have to regenerate to, I think, pump his regeneration energy into the universe and shift it by a millisecond.
Shift it into the vortex. Basically, put raw regeneration energy into the vortex to literally shift it across like that much.
And it leads us into probably, I think we can all agree, the best scene of the episode. Probably the most surprising scene of the episode, because I really didn't see it coming, is the 13th Doctor comes back, and we get a full-on, I wouldn't even call it a cameo, well, I would call it a cameo, but a pretty substantial scene where she comes in. It's not just your usual, 2-line thing where you go, oh, it's like a proper scene where she comes in, and I'm sure Jerome would say is arguably better written than any of the 3 series that she actually appeared in.
I've got to say this as well. Now, you were watching during this period, and obviously, though I haven't seen that era.
Dan, just quickly, Jodie Whittaker was the 13th Doctor. Just for your reference.
Cheers.
And she's a woman.
But I get the feeling that her kind of goodbye and her kind of legacy was almost a bit. It maybe wasn't what the fans wanted. She maybe could have had a better goodbye in comparison to maybe the Doctors. And this felt almost like Roswell T. Davies giving the 13th Doctor that send off that maybe she needed, that kind of closure that maybe she deserved. It felt like a proper send off in comparison.
Interestingly enough, the Power of the Doctor, which is Jodie Whittaker's regeneration episode, probably one of the most well-regarded episodes of her series. It's a bit like this actually, where a lot of stuff happens, and it's big, and I think both the Daleks and the Cybermen. There's loads of and the Masters in it.
The Master destroys Gallifrey again.
Yeah, but then you get really nice tender scenes between. So to catch you up briefly, the Doctor kind of has a kind of love interest going on with her companion Yaz, and there's been like a will they won't they thing that goes on throughout that whole series, and that's kind of tied up quite nicely in a way. So it's interesting. It is interesting. It was an interesting episode, but I think she's so good here. I thought the scene between them both is amazing.
I tell you what was nice as well. I think, and I've spoken to someone else about this, but it was like one of the I think the struggles with the 13th Doctor's tenure for me personally was there were a lot of people. Was that there was a lot of people were in the TARDIS, as in companions wise, and it always felt like focus was diverting like always across too many different people. And I feel like one of the big differences, say, from her Doctor to Ncuti's Doctor is it's very much been back to that one Doctor, one companion, like dynamic of really trying to like focus in on that. And what was really nice, I thought, about this scene between them is that it just focused on Jodie and in terms of the dialogue between the two of them, because actually, like, it was really nice for her to come back, and her Doctor, I feel like, was because she had 3 series, like she really grew into that character, and I felt like I think I said this to you at the time, Mike, when she regenerated and she was like, "Tag, you're it," when before David Tennant became the Doctor, like that for me was like, I get your Doctor now. Like just that line in itself, like that energy, that charm, that kind of childlike sort of wonder. I was like, I totally get your Doctor. Totally get it. And I feel like in this scene, all of that was there. But it also, like, there was the wisdom. Like, it was the scene where it was like, I've been put out because of this time schism caused by you. And it was like the way she delivered every line, I was just like, it was just a pleasure. It was genuinely a pleasure to watch her. And I feel like she, at moments during her tenure, was dealt a bad hand. Whether it was writing, whether it was just convoluted plot points or whatever it was, I think she just got a bit of a bad hand, which all the Doctors have had at points. I think she just got it more consistently, unfortunately. But I think the two of them together were great. It was a shame it was only like 4 minutes long. It would have been brilliant to have like seen them together for an entire episode, because I felt like the chemistry between them was just like electric.
I mean, even that bit as well, where she like shows him a bit of the TARDIS, like Hub says, "Oh, actually, if you do that," and he's can you remember that bit? I'm sure.
Yeah. She gives him a hint about how to regenerate or something. So it's
it was something like, about the TARDIS console. Or something. I just thought bits like that were absolutely fantastic, and like you said, like none of us were really expecting that to happen. So that was probably the biggest surprise of the app.
Yeah. And while
it's not too long ago since she was the Doctor as well, so it is really surprising when they do that. They did it with Matt Smith in Peter Capaldi's first episode. When the Doctor comes back soon after they've regenerated, I'm always like, oh, that's like, and what it proves, I think, is like she's actually willing to come back in various points, and I think, you know, it's really good. Sorry, Jeremy, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say was I think it's nice as well that, because I think there was also a bigger thing beyond the show that was going on here in terms of, I think these two Doctors have probably had a bigger share of criticism than maybe the previous incarnations of modern Who, just in terms of like whether it's sort of news broadcast channels saying the show is too woke, or, you know, they're making decisions, or there's all these things. I think these two performers have had it more. So for them to be on screen together and to bring her back, I think was also kind of a signal to be like, it doesn't matter like what you like in terms of like the show or how it's changing, how it's evolving, whether you like it or not, like these two performers are very, very good, and they got the role off the back of probably auditioning incredibly well, and in their own right are wonderful in playing these characters. And it was really nice. Like the only thing I want to mention as well is that line at the end, how I was like, "Tag, you're it," for me made me learn about Jodie's Doctor. It was the same thing here where Ncuti went, "I love you," and she was like, "I never say that," and he was like, "Yeah, and that's why you got me." And I think, like, I referred to it a few weeks ago, I think I was talking to you, Dan, about being the therapy Doctor, and I was like, that's who you are. And I was like, it doesn't matter if like we like that or don't like it, like that's your identity. And it's the sense of like, so much has been brought up about Ncuti and crying and the tears and all this stuff, and, you know, the aspect of like in the first episode, for example, like getting really emotional over someone we've seen for 2 minutes, and like we can like that, you can not like that, but it is true to his iteration. So actually, like that line at the end where it's just like, "I love you," and just like the growth of the character, like for me, I can get on board with that, because while it's maybe not what the other characters have done, or it doesn't feel like very alien, it's like this, you grew out of this is like your developed experience. And I think it's a shame that we're only going to get 2 seasons of that, because I feel like it was growing into something really, really good, and it's just a shame it's come to an end. But what can you do?
Well, let's get on to it. I mean, that's what happened afterwards. So as soon as we say goodbye to Jodie Whittaker again, I think we can all agree, great cameo. Didn't see it coming. Very, very good. So then we get the actual proper regeneration. well, before that, we learned that the Doctor's sacrifice does save Poppy,
Yeah.
which is good. And then Belinda and Poppy are living happily ever after. And then we finally get what we thought we were going to get, which is the regeneration. Over to you, Dan.
Well, actually, just before that, because when we see the Doctor and Belinda and Poppy again, he scans Poppy, doesn't he?
To confirm she's human, yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting parallel to the first episode where he goes to scan Belinda.
Yeah.
And I don't, maybe that's been brought by a few of the people. Maybe they've not made that connection there, but
he just loves scanning people without permission.
He just loves scanning without permission. Is that something to do with modern society? A bit of a little inroad there with Russell? I don't know. I'm not in his brain, but he tried.
He's got some boundary issues.
He's got some major boundary issues.
So,
and I know exactly what Jerome's going to say at this point, because I feel like we need to address the elephant in the room. What in the living hell were the BBC thinking of not even giving people 24 hours before they actually spoiled? I think, was it 5 or 10 minutes before they just put it out on online?
You got it spoiled for you, didn't you, Jerome?
Jerome missed the moment.
One of the things I was going to say is one of my cons for this episode. It's actually nothing to do with the episode. I had it spoiled for me. I tried to avoid it. You know, it happens. It's one of them. But what annoyed me was that it was, and yes, that I'm sure people will say you could have like turned off YouTube filters and all of this, and you know, if you really didn't want to know. And yeah, I could have done those things.
Thrown your phone away.
But it was the fact it was like I was on my way back from work, and it just came out. I can't remember if it was like the Guardian or it was like a news bulletin, and it was like Ncuti Gatwa to leave Doctor Who. Or Ncuti Gatwa was leaving Doctor Who, and I was like, great, so he's definitely regenerating then. Which, to be honest, like there was rumors going about that might be the case, but I was like, lads, it's like 8:45 in the evening. It's barely been less than an hour. Do you know what I mean? Since the episode's aired, I was like, I still enjoyed the episode, but it changes the way you watch it. Because if I'd have gone into that episode not knowing for certain anything was happened, I probably would have seen it in a different way. But I've now watched the whole of that episode going, I know you're going to regenerate. I know you're going to regenerate at the end.
Did you know about the Billie Piper thing?
I didn't hear about the Billie Piper thing, which is fortunate because I watched that still and was like, oh wow, that that's something. So don't get me wrong, it wasn't completely spoiled for me. But I do just get the impression like it changed my viewing experience. And that's why, like, obviously I get it. We run a podcast channel, which is like discussing Doctor Who and like all the things around it. But it's why I'm trying so hard to like not, because I kind of want to enjoy it in the moment. And like, I love the theory and I love the analysis, but it's like, I feel like it does change the way you watch an episode. It's like we all, it's like we've all been actors. Right, and you know how you have that thing, you train as an actor, and sometimes it's really hard to not watch a show and watch a performance. It's like I just want to be able to watch it. I don't want to be watching things going, oh, would I have made that choice? Oh, I don't know if I'd have done that. It's like sometimes I just want to watch it. I want to enjoy it. And it was a shame, but I just wish world. If I was able to like get that baby to do anything, it would just be like just 24 hours, please. Do you know what I mean? Like, because less than an hour is ridiculous. It's just, anyway.
The funny thing was, when I put the TikTok up immediately after the episode, as I was editing it, I had the notification flash and everything to say, spoiler alert, but here's that moment. I'm like, it is literally, it's still warm. It's only just come out of the oven. I'm like, you just sport it for most of the population. I thought it was ridiculous. But
we had loads of people on TikTok say that they got it spoiled for them.
Was it ever confirmed who Andrew was? Or is Andrew still just Andrew?
It was never confirmed, but the amount of stuff he got absolutely spot on was insane, because he also predicted Jodie Whittaker, which is an insane.
Did he predict Billie Piper as well?
Yeah. So this is it. So it was all spot on, and I read it all, but there was so much of it. But there was so much of it that I didn't believe. Like Jodie Whittaker, like why would Jodie Whittaker be in this episode? Or that I kind of forgot about it, to be honest. Yeah.
Mike, I want to come to you first on the Piper, but before I do, one thing I do want to say, and maybe you boys want to chime in on this as well. I thought that was one of the most beautiful regenerations we've had. From the music to the just like it being honest to Ncuti's character. just in terms of the way it happened for his particular iteration. You know what it is, actually? I don't even know if it's just I fucking love Murray Gold. The man
Yeah,
can do
Murray
no
Gold's great. The
Like, genuinely,
15th
all of the
Doctor's
scores, it
theme
was
is
like,
one of the all-timers.
I must have listened to like the soundtrack for that particular regeneration music for 15. I must have just listened to it for ages after the episode because it was great. And maybe it is just the music, but it made me really. It definitely heightened my emotions watching that. Yeah, Murray Gold's a genius. That's all I want to say, really. What did you guys think of before we go on to Billie? What did you think of his regeneration?
I thought it was pretty magical. That's the only way I can describe it. It's pretty magical. I feel like, because it's a good point mentioning Murray Gold. I feel like in this series, and I think like in general, I think Doctor Who needs more Murray Gold. I don't think we've had anywhere near as much of him as maybe we should, because it really brings a moment to life. I thought it was wonderful. I love the reference to Joy from the Christmas special, seeing the star in the
Joy to the
distance. I
World,
thought that was so beautifully done. And I thought that kind of ripping through the galaxy and just seeing that powerful moment, like just kind of go beyond the walls of the TARDIS, which we've seen so many times now. I thought was just epic, and it was such a brilliant, beautiful moment. I thought, yeah, do you know what? Like it's been a bit of a turbulent time, but as far as exits go, that is one hell of a goodbye. And I think if I was Ncuti, I'd been thoroughly proud to bat out the show that way. Definitely,
it's a good regeneration. My overwhelming thoughts about it though is like it so clearly wasn't the plan. He'd said on Graham Norton it had been leaked that he was doing a third series, so it all feels like they've been forced into this situation by Disney not renewing the show or not, or it all being up in limbo. So that kind of
I think with this point,
foul.
This is a really good point that I think the first thing we need to address definitely is Billie Piper. Because I, for one, hadn't read anything. I tried to stay as much in the dark on this as possible. My jaw just hit the floor. It was my reaction to that was the same as seeing David Tennant regenerate from Jodie Whittaker. It was like how is that happening? How has this happened?
Your reaction on our WhatsApp group was definitely Michael Scott in The Office going that. It was 100%. That was your.
Oh my god!
It was
happening.
good, right? It was really good. Again, it so clearly wasn't the original plan though, because if you actually look at the shot, like they've just kind of superimposed her face. It looks so weird.
So it is a really strange shot.
That was one thing I was going to say. I love the regeneration up to the point where Billie's face appears, because it definitely felt rushed. It was a very strange effect on it.
And that's what feels like a perfect point now to kind of really address the situation, which has that just been thrown in there just to kind of buy a bit of time? They've kind of gone, let's just go, well, hey, what the hell is that all about? And we'll work it out later.
100%. Dan, my theory is, I said this on a TikTok, they weren't going to do a proper celebration of the 20th anniversary of New Who, but then Rusty Davis said that he changed his mind. We all assumed that was going to be the Doctor Who Unleashed special, which they've announced for next week, which seems cool. But I wonder if it's more than that. And I wonder if they are going to do like a special episode where Billie Piper's kind of the lead, because if you're going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of New Who, you need the person that made it a success. Christopher Eccleston's never coming back, but to get Billie Piper back, she said in the past that she'd love to return, but she wouldn't do it full time. So it's obvious. It's obvious they're buying time. Yeah.
Christopher Eccleston, interestingly enough, he nominated her for the role, didn't he? I think there's an interview of him online at like a Comic-Con site where he was like, if there's a female Doctor, it should be Billie Piper. So he's already like thrown this out into the realm. Mike, what you've already spoken a little bit, but because I know you were like really shocked, like genuinely like really, really shocked by this. Would you say you were shocked in like positive way and negative way? A kind of just like, I just don't know what to make of this, like, and did it just how
it's a real mixed bag.
When you saw it, and how do you feel now?
When I saw it, I didn't like it, but now I've kind of warmed to it, because I'm like, if you are going to make a former companion the Doctor, which I kind of don't like as an idea at all, but if you are going to do that, it makes sense to make the companion that literally stared into the time vortex and became Bad Wolf the Doctor, right? So I'd be really surprised if it didn't tie into all of that. And also, Billie Piper is a very, 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 very good actor. So if they have managed to get her as the lead for like a series of specials, like how they brought back David Tennant, and I think it's going to be really good. I also, interestingly, I know you guys will have read up on this. They were very careful not to actually call her the 16th Doctor. So in the credits, you get Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, and you get an introducing Billie Piper.
Everyone picked up on that straight away, and I think it was quite clever to get the attention, to make people jump to the conclusion that it was her. But I think in reality, it's quite a good cliffhanger now to give the show that breathing room it needs. So I thought it was
I'm
quite clever.
interested. I'm interested to see that when Billie Piper, when we do get whatever this is, or an episode of whatever this is, I'm interested to see what the viewing figures would be like, because it feels like a move that's been done to bring people back.
Yeah.
Jerome, what do you think?
I'd be, to be honest, my initial reaction was, while I thought it was a bit crazy, like I was delighted to see Billie, because while it might not make sense in the like immediacy, while I was like, what? It was a like genuinely a delight to see Billie, because it just took me instantly back to series 1 and 2, and I was like, and she was one of the best companions, and I feel like it was great to see her on screen again. It's like that for me is like top tier Who fandom in terms of like when I think of Billie Piper and I think of Doctor Who, I'm like, that was when I was involved. That was it. That was the peak. So I had a positive reaction to it. I've thought about it since, and I think in terms of like her as like the Doctor figure, I won't call her the Doctor because, as you say, it's introducing Billie Piper, but let's say it's the Doctor figure. I think she has great main character energy, and I think she'll do a great job in whatever the capacity is. So I'm not worried about that particularly. I think the bigger conversation is like, well, there's two things for me. One is it going to affect her current legacy as other characters? As in, like, because for me, like, series 2, Doomsday is one of the most iconic Doctor Who episodes ever in terms of what it was. And I know that she came back since, and they kind of got the happily ever after. She came back as the moment. But I'm like, if you keep bringing her back, is it going to diminish away from all of the storylines she's already been a part of? And does it like lessen their value? That would be one thing I'd have about it. The second thing would be, there is the question of, has the show run out of ideas? No, I don't think the show's run out of ideas, because I think you can go from anything through to like the brain of Morbius idea through to the timeless child. Like they'll inevitably come up with something because they have to. It's what the show has kind of run on, that frantic energy of like, we've got this idea, we need to do something now. But it will be interesting. I mean, my theory, I was thinking about this, like, what could it be? I think this might go back to, because some people are saying, is it the moment? Is it Bad Wolf? I feel like when Rose first became Bad Wolf, she took on the heart of the TARDIS. She looked into the vortex and had the heart of the TARDIS. And I think it might be that, in the sense of, like, because he's regenerated in the TARDIS. Kudos to Ncuti, by the way, for not destroying the thing and doing it outside. Legend. But it was like, I feel like it's going to lead into that, in the sense of it's almost like a TARDIS hybrid regeneration. There's basically almost like cooking another Doctor. Because I think of the Doctor and the TARDIS almost as one. I feel like one can't exist without the other, sort of thing. And he made reference to it, didn't he, in the episode? It's like, I've got the only TARDIS in existence, and he made a pointed thing of that. And I do think it's going to be something along those lines of like the heart of the TARDIS Bad Wolf element, because I've seen all of the reviews and the interviews with Billie, and being like, I'd love to come back, but not full time. And I don't think it will be a full time thing. Maybe it's a Christmas app. Maybe it is like a Christmas or an Easter app that they just have been so secretive about, and maybe they've already filmed it and they just haven't announced it.
Do you know what? I don't think they filmed it, but I think they are aware that there's going to be a huge gap. And she said that she would come back, and if she does have availability in her schedule, it's a very good way of bashing out a Christmas app in a few months. Like, if you can just get her as the lead star, you know?
Yeah, I think also it stops them from pressing the Tennant panic button, because if it was Tennant who came back,
Damn, yeah.
if it was Tennant who came back, that's when I think people really go,
People
you
would
are
have
in
gone,
trouble
fuck
here.
off.
You are in trouble here. Like if he comes,
Yeah,
especially if he comes back that soon after he's already been in it, I feel like it's a way of them not pressing the Tennant panic button.
Dan, your
and
premonition
doing the other
kind
bit.
of came true because you've been saying the Tennant button for ages. They've pressed the Billie Piper button as well.
It's almost like, let's go. What the hell we're going to do? Nostalgia, smash. Yeah, we're
Guys,
fine. We're
guys.
back.
I'm telling you, there's an absorbable off button in there somewhere.
I mean,
People might not want to believe it, but it's there. It's
the
somewhere.
thing is as well, it's not as if it had. We had Captain Jack come back. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. Because the funny thing is, as well as the original leak, there was another leak that sort of came through. I think it was on Reddit. And Billie Piper was one of about 5 or 6 different names as a potential new Doctor. But they all had links to the TARDIS or to a sort of significant part of the Doctor's history. So whether this potential option, because I'm sure we mentioned it a couple of episodes ago, where one idea is, and I think that they've kind of created a few backup plans just in case Disney didn't go ahead with the 3rd season, one of which kind of tied people over was a bit like the specials in 2009 or 2009, where you'd have like the one episode of a few months gap and the next one. You would have these specials, but it would be a new Doctor every single time. So it would be like a standalone episode with a new Doctor or with a familiar face taking on the role of the Doctor. Something happens, bit of a pause, then someone else. And that would kind of bridge the gap a little bit until they work out what's going on. So it was kind of surprising that and seeing Billie's face kind of intertwined. But all that remains is, and again, and I know it's jumping back a little bit, did we see, and forgive me if we did, because there was a lot going on, did we see the Doctor's granddaughter in that episode?
No.
So, because I've only seen half of it so far, but I've watched the Unleashed episode tying into that. And obviously there were interviews with her in the full outfit and the full costume for the episode. And we never really got answers to that. And I only bring that up as well because I think it was particularly in the US, but someone on, I think it might be TikTok, mentioned it on Disney Plus in Germany, the sort of loading screen for the final season of Doctor Who. There was a static image of the Doctor and Belinda dancing in a club. And we assume that was part of the original ending of the show. And that's probably why we've not seen the Doctor's granddaughter, because again, that probably made up a significant chunk of that finale that then got rewritten. So the question I have for you guys is, do you think as a result of the reshoots and this last minute sort of frantic conclusion or sort of drawing board conclusion of the series, do you think we missed out on a better episode?
It's hard to say. I think that the Susan thing was supposed to be developed more over time. So there's 2 things that have still need to be developed. When Anita leaves, she says the boss says hi, and the boss sort of harks back to the Meep. Remember when the Meep's the spirit and you go, oh, come on. So the boss, whoever the boss is, that is still an ongoing thing. And
Who do you think
Susan
the boss is at this point? Or is it impossible to say?
Billie Piper. Billie Piper. but and so you've got the boss and you've got Susan. I think is supposed to be more ongoing. What I want to do is I might put, because it's a bit of a long one, I might put a pause on this and we might schedule in another podcast because I really want to discuss what the fuck is going to happen with Doctor Who, and I don't want to do it now because we'll be here for another hour. Because it's really interesting.
It would also be good, I think, to do a review of the 2 seasons.
Yeah.
As in like the tenure of like the 2 seasons, and then like talk about Ncuti's tenure over it all. That would be probably a good idea.
Let's do that for our next podcast. I want to do a retrospective on these 2 series and I want to discuss what happens because there's a lot of interesting questions. And one I'll just tease you with is, because we want to talk about the wall between the land and the sea as well, because we've got office footage from it.
The land between the war and the sea.
The land between the war and the sea, sorry.
Thank you.
Disney have obviously been promoting that now, and there is no mention anywhere in their promotion of Doctor Who. So it's like they're trying to separate whatever that is from the flagship show, which doesn't bode well for the future of Disney's partnership with Doctor Who. But 2, how weird is it going to be if the war between the land and the sea is really well received and kicks off and it's great, and Disney want to renew it, but they've dropped Doctor Who. So we get Doctor Who carrying on like a different streaming service or just on BBC, but you've got a spin-off that just airs on Disney. It'd be weird. It's weird.
It might be weird, but I don't know if it ultimately matters, because, like you say, for instance, like Disney might drop it, but someone else might take it up. I mean, Amazon might take it up, or whoever, and it might. I think like the show, even if like the state of the show is like positive or negative, there's so much lore and so much history you can tap into. I think that's attractive to a multiple different set of sources. Like I really do, and I think that because also like the thing is, a lot of the criticism has come about the viewership, right? About dwindling numbers and things, but ultimately, like so many people now don't watch it live. So many people watch it on like iPlayer and like on or later down the line, or will either binge watch it at one moment. And I feel like maybe Disney will drop it because maybe it's not bringing in the numbers they thought, and that's fair enough. But I hear what you're saying, Mike, about like, you know, if they had one series there and it kind of went off. But I feel like if they're going into the Whoniverse, there's going to be more spin-offs. It's going to be way more spin-offs, and maybe
that's what we need to discuss. I just feel like
I think that's the plan, though. So, like, maybe behind the scenes, Disney are kind of looking at it and going, okay, this hasn't hit too hard, but what have we got coming up? What are the next phases, or in terms of characters and things? So, I don't think the decision will be based just off these two series and the war between the land and the sea. I think it's going to be like what else is in planning is going to be a big part of it as well.
Have you seen the 7-day figures for Wish World?
I have not.
It's like 1 million. It's like 1.5 million.
Shit.
It's really bad.
Which is not great.
And I mean, one of the points that we go, and I don't know whether you guys agree, but I think some of the charm of Doctor Who has always been that it's not been this sort of high budget, glossy 4K sci-fi adventure. It's kind of been very British. It's kind of been sort of like you have your set. It's kind of been it's smart in the way it's filmed.
Yeah, did the set with an umbrella.
But bits like that where it's not been this polished Marvel film. It's been very British, sort of a bit more kind of middle of the road, but it's been charming. And I think that charm is what I think has kind of been missing from these two. They've been very big budget, bright, very colourful episodes. And I feel like it's lost a bit of its character in a sense. And I think with the Disney stuff, again, the original plan might have been, the Whoniverse, there probably would have been a hell of a lot of planning there in place. But I wouldn't mind it going back. You know what I mean? Going like a little bit back to how it was, like more sort of a bit, I don't know, not cheap, but like a bit like.
I think the issue is that it's not going to go back to that, is it? In terms of like, I think now they've opened this box. I think like it will go back to the Beeb, and it could just be the BBC on their own, and they'll do that. But also like the BBC is changing in terms of the way it does things, kind of going forward. Yeah. So it will be interesting to see like, because like even if it just goes back to the BBC, like they might turn around and go, well, we're not going to do 13 episodes. Like we can't, in terms of the current climate and stuff. And I know that like I think soaps and stuff are getting like budget cuts as well, or they're making cuts to like all sorts of things that like so you kind of go, well. So everywhere's kind of streamlining a bit. So I think it would be. I think Doctor Who's one of those shows that is just flagship. Like it does carry weight because of what it is and the history it has. So I don't think it will be cancelled, because I think it will be. It might pause. Clearly, it's shown that in its own history. But in some regard, I think it will always continue, even if it's like in the form of specials or a movie again. Or like whatever, like I think there will always be a want and a need for it, even if there's a break. Like there will be some form, and like Big Finish keeps going. You've got the comics, you've got all these things. So I don't feel like the cancelling of a TV show is the end of like it, because I think there's too much going on in too many different mediums for it to be just removed. If you see what I mean. But
completely, I don't think it's ever going to be removed. But I think now, if ever there was a point where the show could maybe benefit from a bit of a hiatus, if you like, now would probably be the time. I think now, even if it was just for a couple of years, you'd have the War Between Land and Sea, which is tonally, at least from the trailer, it's kind of, I got the sort of, I don't want to keep comparing it to Torchwood, but it kind of it had a more mature theme to it. It didn't seem like a kind of kids sort of all ages show like Doctor Who is, it seemed like a much more serious natured show. So I feel like now, because a lot of people called for a break around the 50th, a lot of people called for a break around the 60th. Maybe this is a point now where circumstances have almost kind of given the green light for the show to go, we've left it on this epic cliffhanger. We're going to try something different in the meantime. We shot those seasons back to back 2 or 3 years ago. The reaction maybe hasn't gone down as well as we were hoping it would with this interstellar budget. Maybe now's the point where we just give it a bit of a break and almost kind of allow the show to be desired. It's to be missed because it's been there for so long. Maybe it's now an opportunity for people to go, oh yeah, well, it's now on streaming or whatever. And you go, oh, I'd love to see Doctor Who again. And then just as the interest kind of like comes back, it's maybe the Ncuti seasons will probably be admired as time goes on. They maybe won't be appreciated now, but a year, 2 years from now, people might look back and go, actually, it was pretty good. And I think now it's maybe just that point where the show's just kind of reached its natural conclusion for now. It's obviously going to go off in a different angle, but I think now it maybe benefit from
it's
a bit
just
of
so weird though, because it's got a spin-off on the way. Like it'd be so weird for Doctor Who to get cancelled, and then the war between the land and the sea to just limp into existence, and then it's just like, yeah, we clearly have a lot more to discuss. I think we should schedule another podcast for 2 weeks' time. We might have had a little bit more news by then, but I want to talk about the war between land and the sea. I want to talk about what the fuck Doctor Who's going to do from here and whether Disney's still in, because even me, like a diehard Doctor Who fan, I'm very worried. The fact that we haven't had a renewal yet is insane. Like, it's insane. So I'm worried. Anyway,
I've got one more question for you. Just one.
Go on.
If we're going to be, and I'm assuming, watching the war between the land and the sea, what are we going to call the podcast? The war between
who doesn't have a war between the land and the sea? Clearly.
It works. Hey, actually, we actually got our first and only compliment on the podcast name on TikTok. Someone said, "Great podcast name, lads," and I was like, "Finally, somebody gets it."
But no, what they said,
Mike,
name,
how many
not
YouTube accounts have you
content,
had?
just name.
And which one did you log in on?
Thank you very much for joining us for our 50th special and indeed our sum up of season 2. Again, just like we've had done for the last couple of weeks, we'd love to know what you think. Give us your opinions. Drop us a comment on TikTok, Instagram, and anywhere else that you could follow us at Who Doesn't Pod. We will see you soon for a bit more of a deep dive on the Ncuti era, I suppose now, and what will become of Who, and also the very exciting premise of the war between the land and the sea. So until next time, it is goodbye from the 3 Ranis.
Nice.
It's good
Very
night
nice.
from him.
And it's good night from
you.
him. Oh, fuck, Jerome, we fucked it.
It's a good night from him.
And it's a good night from him.
Thank you for
And
watching.
it's probably a good night from Doctor Who as well. But
And it's probably us cancelled.
and it's probably cancelled.